After a pretty rough recruiting cycle to end 2022, Coach Bryan Harsin has made amends by going heavily into the transfer portal and getting some key commitments in that way to help bolster Auburn's roster. They got another one after spring practice. Let's talk about who that is and what it means for the football program going forward into the 2022 season. But before we do that, I want to welcome you back to the channel. Whether you're a member of the Auburn family or a fan of another persuasion, this is the E2C network where we share the whole of the Auburn experience. We might tend to be Auburn sports heavy here, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our content, and thank you to members of our booster club like Kevin Nelson, who help produce videos like this. Auburn's football team has a few areas where they probably could use just a little bit of extra help. This is obviously from traditional things like people graduating, going on to the NFL, but also they've had some transfer portal people leaving, more than people would have liked this season as well. But you know what the great thing about the transfer portal is? It also taketh, but it giveth away. And we have a new transfer here at Auburn who's going to help bolster our roster for the 2022 season. Coach Bryan Harsin has gotten Craig McDonald of Iowa State to commit to being part of the Auburn Tiger in this way. Now, let's talk about this for just a second and address this. Iowa State and Auburn. There's been way too much connection between the two universities, in my opinion, over the last couple of years. We seem to go get their old coaches, their old presidents. Those didn't work out as well as we had hoped. But let's hope that Craig McDonald is going to buck that trend. It helps us move forward with this relationship we seem to want to have with Iowa State. He's from the state of Minnesota, from the school Minnehaha Academy. Interesting name in an interesting state. So he's a Midwest guy, and as you can expect, was recruited mainly coming out of high school by a lot of Big Ten schools, ultimately deciding to go with the Iowa State Cyclones, just a little bit south of his home state of Minnesota. He's listed at 6'2", 190 pounds, and it is expected to play safety, although some sites will list him as just a DB because he's probably got some versatility, which is a great thing to have, but you can probably expect him to see him as a safety, and that's what we're going to discuss him in that light. Let's talk a little bit about what we know from him in his time at Iowa State, because you want to know what you're getting, right? So in 2020, which was his freshman year, he actually redshirted. And I'm actually a big fan of redshirting younger players unless you absolutely cannot afford to have them off the field, meaning that they're just that great of a talent, or you're just in that much of a desperate need of some depth at the position that particular player that you're talking about needs to be at. So for me, I love it when players get that first year to just sit back and learn how to be a college football player. So that first year sitting out for him, for me, is crucial, and it's already a huge plus in that column. Now, he did play in 4 games, obviously retaining his eligibility with that 4-game rule, so you don't have to worry about that. In 2021, he had 41 total tackles, so significantly more playing time for him in 2021. And I don't believe this was part of a starting role, at least a regularly starting role, and I'm also not sure if this were tackles that were a lot consumed, is I guess the word I'm trying to use, on special teams. But either way, more playing time, more experience that this guy is going to be bringing to the table. So 2 years played, but only 1 is counting against his eligibility. So 3 total years that he could be spending with the Auburn Tigers. I always think it's interesting to talk about the numbers with these type of news items that come out, specifically about the transfer portal this time and how Coach Harsin has been taking advantage of it. So far, we've taken 6 from the transfer portal. 2 of those, including McDonald, have been defensive backs, and now 2 post-spring. So you can see the numbers starting to trend that maybe there's some more coming down the line. But the point stands that Coach Harsin is doing a great job of going out there and finding what needs we need to be filled with the transfer portal. We also have had 7 defensive backs: Craig McDonald, who we've been talking about, DJ James, Keontae Scott, Austin Osbury, Jadarian Rhyme, Marquise Gilbert, and Caleb Wooden. Within those defensive backs, that also makes 4 total safeties that we've either brought in via recruiting or through the transfer portal. So we seem to be doing a really good job of focusing on rebuilding a defensive backfield that's probably taken some hits. Now, when we start talking about what it means for Auburn, we need to probably discuss why Auburn. Why does a guy from Iowa State, why does a guy originally from Minnesota decide to leave his home state, then a state somewhat close to him, and then come all the way down to little old Auburn, Alabama? I mean, it's a great place, don't get me wrong. I love it. I do a YouTube channel and podcast network about it. But we need to ask the question, why? Why does this make sense for him? Well, it could be a couple reasons. I'm speculating a bit on this first one. Could be because of playing time. Maybe it's already pretty secured who's going to be filling those safety roles at Iowa State, and wanting to get some more playing time a little bit earlier in his career. That opportunity may abound a little bit more here at Auburn. But let's talk about it on Auburn's side of the equation too. They just lost some big names in the defensive backfield. We're talking names like Roger McCreary, Bridarius Knighton, Tennyson left, several others. They really need to rebuild cornerbacks and safeties. There are some guys still left over that we are really going to be happy to have, but we definitely need to start building up for the future, and it makes a lot of sense to bring in a guy from the transfer portal like him to help bolster those numbers. Auburn has also shown a propensity to be able to get defensive backs into the NFL, whether that means being drafted or as a free agent and then staying in the NFL and having longer careers. And that's just recently as well. So that's something that can be very attractive to a guy like McDonald wanting to come down from the Midwest down here to the South and play for little old Auburn University. And we already discussed playing time, but I think playing time is a factor in this simply because of his trajectory. You can look at what he did with that year taking off as a redshirt, learning the game, earning more playing time. And I think this is a guy that knows within himself that if he's just given the opportunity at a place that maybe has a little bit more of a flexibility in terms of playing time, he can definitely earn it. But let's also not forget this as well. And this is a minor thing, but I definitely think it plays into it. Trey Donaldson was part of this football recruiting class, and he said he wanted to play two sports, football and basketball. More recently, he's just come out and said that he will be focusing on basketball, probably as we all expected. So with him being a safety, opens up another spot that we've needed to fill in terms of numbers and depth. So finally, what does this mean officially for Auburn? And we're just trying to piece all of these things together. Obviously, the coaches and the players and the staff are the only ones that know officially what this means. The expectations are that names like Zion Puckett, Caden Bridges, and Marquise Gilbert will be the starters or the guys expected to take most of the playing time at the strong safety and free safety positions, depending on which ones they play at. Which means for McDonald, he'll have to compete for playing time with names that are coming up and rising in the ranks, such as an Austin Osbury or a Caleb Wooden especially. That's probably where he finds himself at the current place in terms of earning playing time. Now, what this means for Auburn is that we are now strong, 3 deep at free safety and strong safety, depending on how we all mix and match things up, who plays at what position. But there are 6 viable, talented options outside of whoever else who may want to play that position as well that are there for Auburn to use, and that is huge. And remember, on defense, Auburn typically likes to play a nickelback more often than not, so there's going to be opportunities there for all of these safety guys and the cornerbacks as well to compete for that spot when they utilize it on defense. Could be another option for McDonald, but either way, he has shown the ability to earn playing time, and when he gets it, make the most of it. So I think coupling that with opportunity here, it's going to be a match made in heaven. And I'm not saying starter already. I'm just saying that I think we're going to see him a lot, if not on special teams, but definitely on defense as well. If you enjoyed this type of content, please do help support it by smashing that like button. And if you want more from us, be sure to hit the subscribe along with the notification bell so you don't miss any uploads or live streams. If you want to help support what we do here, check out the links in the description. You can become a channel member here by hitting the join button for $1 a month, or head on over to patreon.com/E2C network to become part of the Booster Club and get yourself some different perks for supporting us there. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where we cover the whole of the Auburn experience. War Eagle.